Hello mga ka-learners! It's that time of the day again to learn something new. Do you like reading? When you are reading, isn't it amazing how you are able to feel what the character is feeling? That up and down of emotions, it gets you hooked on a good book. Or do you often get confused about the character's emotions while reading? If you are, then this lesson can help you understand how ideas and feelings are depicted in stories. In this lesson, we will read selections that will help you describe your ideas and feelings better. Let's see what you already know first. I have here some excerpts from short stories. Let's read them and answer some questions about them. Think about these questions as we read the excerpt. Number 1. How did the man feel about the woman? Number 2. How did the woman feel toward the man? No, I must go. Must you? And she looked at him again with wide, strained, doubtful eyes, and again from the pain on his breast. He knew how he loved her. He went and bent to kiss her gently, passionately, with his heart's painful kiss. And my hair smells so horrible, she murmured in distraction. And I'm so awful, oh no, I'm too awful. And she broke into bitter, heartbroken sobbing. You can't want to love me, I'm horrible. Don't be silly, he said, trying to comfort her, kissing her, holding her in his arms. I want you. I want to marry you. We're going to be married quickly tomorrow if I can. But she only sobbed terribly and cried, I feel awful, I feel I'm horrible to you. No, I want you, was all he answered, blindly, with that terrible intonation which frightened her almost more than her horror, lest he should not want her. That excerpt we just read is from The Horse Dealer's Daughter by D.H. Lawrence. So let's answer the questions I gave before we read the text. Number 1. How did the man feel about the woman? From the text, we can say that the man loved the woman very much. Number 2. How did the woman feel toward the man? The woman felt insecure and was doubtful of the man's love for her. Were you able to answer the questions correctly? Let's try again using this poem. Here are the questions. Number 1. How does the author of the selection feel about Lucy, the subject of this poem? Number 2. How would you feel if you were Lucy? She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove, a maid whom there were none to praise, and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be. But she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me. The title of that poem we just read is She Dwelt Among the Untrodden Ways by William Wordsworth. Let's now answer. How does the author of the selection feel about Lucy, the subject of this poem? He feels very sad about losing Lucy, the woman he loved. Number 2. How would you feel if you were Lucy? I would feel very happy to know that someone loves me very much even after I die. Did you answer that correctly? If you want to improve your understanding of the feelings of characters in stories or text, let's do more practice. We are going to read the story entitled Rascal by Leticia F. Farinas. Let's read the story and keep in mind that we will describe what the characters in the story think and feel. Marianito, the most notorious boy in the neighborhood. His name was synonymous to vandalism. Not one kid in the entire rectangular block where we lived escaped his mischievousness. He was always looking for trouble. There never was a day without a complaint from an angry mother. At first, they always left the house with a feeling of satisfaction after the usual confrontasi with Mom. Many a time, An irate mother would loosen her wrinkles, shake her head, take a stealthy glance at Marianito, and hurry off. But when the bottle is filled to the brim, it soon overflows. One day, the heavy features of Mang Rufo appeared at our doorway. He gave out a sheepish grin, and a portion of his yellowish teeth managed to peep out. With roving, bloodshot eyes, he asked me where Mom was. "Mommy, Mang Rufo is here," I called at the top of my voice. "He has a gun!" Mom came rushing down the stairs with curlers flying. She had never looked so troubled, her face still halfway made, cold cream glistening on her pudgy nose. She descended the stairs 2 steps at a time as if somebody were after her. She paused for breath when she reached the last step and leaned heavily on the banister. Mom tried to give out a friendly smile. She noticed my presence and I felt uneasy. I immediately picked up Marites and Mariles from their cradles and went upstairs. I cautioned them not to make any sound because their grandma was angry. Poor little twins, I had awakened them in the midst of their sleep. The twin dolls were my birthday gift for Dad when I was only 3 years old. My curiosity aroused, I made up my mind later in the evening to ask Lilay, our maid, what the sensational news was all about. Dad arrived home earlier than usual with a tired look. After he had kissed us each on the cheek and given us our daily ration of chocolate bars, Mom motioned him to the room. When our parents cloistered themselves in the room, I knew something was wrong. Most often, it was all because of Marianito. I threw Marianito a questioning look. He shrugged his shoulders, pulled my pigtails, and snarled at me to mind my own business. He was a boy nobody would love for a brother. I had even forced myself many a time to believe that there was nothing good in him. He was handsome, all right, but good looks are not a license for notoriety. We were only 2, Marianito and I. I was 7 and he was 1 year my junior. He was named Little Mariano after Dad, and I Marianita after Mom. I could not understand why he was more favored than me, in spite of his notoriety. Mom and Dad always took his side. He always had the edge over me. I was told that a young lady should be refined in her manners, especially in the presence of other people. How about Marianito? Was he exempted from the rigid discipline a girl was subjected to? Marianito would even hurl his plate at Sitang if his need was not handed right away. Sitang tendered an on-the-spot resignation, but Mom prevailed on her to stay with a 10 peso raise. Marianita's every whim or wish was always granted. When I told Dad that she had already outgrown his tricycle, Dad bought him a new bicycle that same afternoon. He had all kinds of outfits, from Davy Crockett to Roy Rogers, so with his toy guns that ranged from pistoled carbines to automatic rifles. Every night, when Sitang tucked me in bed, I would prod her to tell me if I was really my parents' own child or not. I knew that they loved me, but not as much as they loved Marianito. Mom had tried to tell me something a couple of times, but I always found a way to elude her. I was afraid it would be a revelation of my true identity, that I was not their own flesh and blood, but somebody else's. That I was only an adopted child and christened Marianito for authenticity's sake. Besides, Mom could no longer have children because of a major operation she had undergone, a year after Marianito's birth. One Friday afternoon in school, Chita, my best friend, gave me a bag full of manzanitas. I was choosing the ripe ones when I suddenly remembered Marianito. Why manzanitas were his favorite? He had told me that morning that if I could bring home a bag full of manzanitas, he would give me a surprise that afternoon. I wondered why he did not just order me that day, as he always did, to bring home some manzanitas for him. It was the first time he did not kiss me goodbye. When I neared home, I saw people rushing to and from the house. I recognized my cousins Josie, Flor, and Net. They seldom came to the house except on special occasions. My heart pounded with joy as I ran upstairs to meet them. Their eyes were all downcast. I touched my eyes with the back of my hand to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I was nailed to where I stood and refused to believe what met my eyes. I felt weak and the bag of manzanitas fell, and the contents rolled in all directions. Then 2 strong arms carried me. That was all I could remember. When I opened my eyes, Mom and Dad were at my bedside. He was stroking my hair and Mom was showering me with kisses. My cheeks were wet with Mom's tears. Dad tried to suppress his tears, but they kept on flowing. It was the first time I saw Dad cry. He told me once that only weak people cry. It was the first time I really understood my parents and why they were so devoted to Marianito. I could not forgive myself for having been blinded by excessive jealousy and hatred for my brother. If I had only listened to what Mom tried to tell me many a time, I would not have called my brother a rascal. Poor brother, I could have showered you with the love and understanding you needed so badly in so short a time. I cannot now blame my father and mother. As loving and doting parents, they had wanted him to be happy, although they had to give their son the best in life for such a short time. They had wanted him to be happy, although they had to go through a lot of sacrifices. I realize now, but it's not too late to make amends for everything. Marianito now only lives in our memories. He was a victim of cancer. Now that we have read the text, let us answer these questions. Number 1. How did Marianita's parents treat her and her brother Marianito? Marianita's parents treated her and her brother Marianito differently. They seemed to favor Marianito more. He always got what he wanted, even if it meant Marianita would sacrifice. Number 2. How did Marianita feel about this? Marianita felt jealous of her brother because he always got what he wanted, to the point that she had to sacrifice a lot. She often wondered why this is so, but can't seem to figure out the reason until her brother died, and she understood why her parents treated them differently before. How were you able to describe how the characters feel in the story? Are there key words that were used to describe their emotions? In the story we just read, it was described that Marianita's parents treated her and her brother differently. You know this because the passage, "I could not understand why he was more favored than me, in spite of his notoriety. Mom and Dad always took his side. He always had the edge over me." This made Marianita jealous of her brother. Knowing parts of the text that convey the characters' emotions are really important in understanding the feelings of the characters.